today starting a transgender economic empowerment program. My name is Anand Kalra, and I am the program administrator for TAN. We're joined today by Drian Juarez of the Los Angeles LGBT Center and Gender Justice LA, as well as the Transgender Advisory Board of West Hollywood. The purpose and overview for today's webinar is to teach you all how to start and run an economic empowerment program for transgender people in your community. We'll start with a little bit of housekeeping and introductions, then I will hand over to Drian for the presentation, and we'll have Q&A at the end. If you have questions during the webinar, you can also ask them during the course of it. So how to do that? To ask your questions, you can type in the chat box on your GoToWebinar dashboard. You should see a tab that says Chat. You can ask questions in there at any time, and I'll be able to answer those for you or read them out to Drian, depending on what the question is. If you would like to ask your question out loud, you just need to click the button that says Raise My Hand, and we'll be able to call on you. You're welcome to ask questions during the course of the webinar, and again, at the end, there will be plenty of time. A little bit about Trans Advocacy Network before we get going. TAN is an alliance of trans organizations that work at the state and local level doing advocacy and organizing. And we are coming together to build a stronger trans movement by sharing resources and best practices and basically swapping notes about the work that we're all doing on the ground level. You can read more about TAN on our website, transadvocacynetwork.org, or you can check us out on Facebook. And we are always accepting new member groups. So if you think that your group would benefit from being a member of TAN, we invite you to submit your application, which is available from our website. Today's speaker, as I said before, is Drian Juarez. She's the program manager for the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project at the Los Angeles LGBT Center. She's the current board president of Gender Justice LA and a member of the West Hollywood Transgender Advisory Board. So with that, I would like to welcome Drian, and I will hand over control to her.
Thank you so much, Anand. Thank you. And I'm really, really happy.
Go to meeting, V6.
Sorry. I'm really, really happy to be here today, and thank you to Anand and TAN for the invitation to present today. I came up with 4 keys that I think were really strategic in the development of the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project. And so I'll share those with you today. And hopefully these suggestions will be something that you can utilize and might help you think of ways that you can connect locally to some of these resources and start providing them in an economic empowerment project setting. So to start off with, let me click on here. My name, again, is Drian Juarez, and I am the program manager for the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project. The program, sorry about that, I'm trying to move this out of the way. The program was funded in 2007 by the City of West Hollywood, and it was really funded to address the lack of economic opportunities for transgender people in the city of West Hollywood. Originally, it was run out of an HIV prevention program when it first started, and by the end of the year, the center had identified that a lot of the issues that were coming up for people accessing services really were more complicated legal issues. So by the end of that year, the program was rewritten and moved to the Legal Services Department in 2008. And at that point, I was recruited to run the program. Since then, we've case managed over 1,000 trans people. We've trained over 600 employers. And through that experience, I feel I've developed some lessons that I think might be helpful to you when looking to develop these services. And hopefully, with these tips, you'll be able to develop a plan of action for your community. So to tell you a little bit more about the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project, we provide intensive case management services to the trans community. So those are soft skills: resume writing, cover letter writing, improving people's interview skills, and some employer advocacy when people are transitioning on the job, when they're outed as trans on the job. Oftentimes they need resources to help them navigate those discussions with their HR departments. We also provide referral services. So a lot of the services that are out there were useful to transgender people. The issue was cultural competency. So we developed trainings to help service providers be able to better address the needs of trans people. And so through that, we've been able to provide legal services internally through the Legal Services Department at the center. We've connected with various housing providers. We're talking about shelters, SRO, housing facilities. We've also connected with various clinics in the area to help people access hormone therapy and or letters for gender change. And also we have strong relationships with all of the agencies that are assisting transgender people locally. So whatever a client is looking for, we are great at connecting them to those resources. And a second component of TEEP is working with employers. So we provide gender identity 101 trainings for employers. We make them aware of the trans identity, the issues that come up for trans people once we transition on the job or are outed on the job, or are open on the job. We help employers develop transition guidelines, and we also give employers tips for ensuring that their environments are welcoming to all communities. To tell you a little bit more about the LA Gay and Lesbian Center, we've recently, I'm so sorry, I misspoke, just this month, we changed our name to be Los Angeles LGBT Center. It's a really, really great mark in our history, and we've been around since 1971 and started off as a small storefront off of Santa Monica Boulevard, and since then have expanded to 5 sites. We currently staff about 410 individuals. We utilize about 3,000 volunteers every year and provide a multitude of services, from healthcare services that include mental health, primary care, transitional care. We have a transitional living program, and we also have a pharmacy, a legal services where TEEP is housed, and within that we also have an anti-violence program and a domestic violence program. So the center really works to take care of the person from youth to senior. So just a little bit about the center there. So today, the keys to success for us when developing TEEP were really developing a needs assessment to get clarity on the needs of the community and ensure that we are providing services that the community is in need of. Developing employment relationships. So developing relationships with those agencies that are funded by the county or state to provide employment services. So agencies like WorkSource here in Los Angeles are really instrumental in getting people connected to computer classes, to the hard skills that are more difficult to provide in-house. Resource development. So a lot of the clients, when they came in to see us, the job was the goal, but oftentimes in order to get to that job, we needed to help them find housing or a shelter, to be able to change their identity documents, to be able to expunge criminal records. So we needed to have all of those wraparound services in place in order to be able to help that person get to the job. And then also, finally, providing those services and what the flow of those services can look like. So I'll go over some of what that was like for us when we were developing the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project. So the first key is the needs assessment. So this is, your intake tool. With this, you're going to be gauging people's needs and capacities in terms of their skills, their knowledge with computers, different programs, what have you. This will also help you to get clarity on what services can be in-house and what services are referrals. So in-house, we're talking about primarily soft skills again, resume, interview, cover letters, and then the referrals are to those services where people can get certification in various skills programs. And this needs assessment will also help you clarify whether you can develop a job club. So a job club was really useful when developing TEEP because it helped me to identify individuals who were really motivated to get involved, who really had the capacity to volunteer. And those individuals I invited to join a training committee. So this committee, I would train on gender and sexual diversity in the workplace, and then they would assist with providing those trainings to employers. Again, those became great skills that they could put onto a resume, that I could be a referral for them. So it helped in a lot of different ways. And it also helps you figure out the location of services. So whether if you're going to be providing a space where you have these services, it'll help you get clarity on what services you can provide. If you're going to be a satellite, meaning that you'll travel around and maybe will be part of a clinic, it'll help you get clarity on that. Or if these services are primarily going to be online, it'll help you gauge just how to provide those services. So the needs assessment really informs a lot of the work that you'll be doing and sets up the foundation for how those services may look. And also developing a feedback component is important. So being able to stay in touch with people so that you can get their feedback on how the services are being provided, what was easy for them to access, what was challenging. So developing a feedback mechanism is also really important. So for TEEP, the needs assessment really collects baseline information, education, and people's goals and skills. So for baseline information, we're talking about demographics. So more of the information that we need when reporting our numbers to the City of West Hollywood. So we collect preferred name from individuals, their age, how they identify, and we try to open it up to how the variety of identities that people may take, their contact info, and we want to make sure that it's safe to contact people if we're calling them about services or resumes. We want to make sure that people, that we're not outing anyone, especially when the name is the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project. Gauging people's education level, so the highest grade that they completed in school, gives us an idea of the kinds of jobs they can apply for, what other resources they may need, whether that's attending a trade school, getting certified in any particular services, and also gauging if they're interested in going back to school or completing a GED if they should need something like that. So asking that question really helps to also gauge what you can assist them with in regards to educational needs. And goals and skills. It's good to know what skills you can market to an employer. And so asking that question is really, really important. Sorry about that if you're watching this. And so being able to gauge people's education level is really, really important. And through that, then that informs the kinds of skills that they may need to develop. It also helps you figure out whether somebody needs to develop resume writing skills, the basics of employment, and also if you need to develop workshops, this is a great way of finding that information out. And also finding out from people if there are workshops that they're looking for that perhaps they're not getting anywhere. Some of this might be coming out to an employer, how to discuss transition with an employer. And for me, I like to end our needs assessment with asking people what their dream job is. I want people to feel inspired when they come in for services, and I want them to feel like they can attain their dreams, that they can have the job or the career that they want. And so gauging what somebody's dream job is, I feel is a great way of letting them know that regardless of where they're at today, they can still get that dream job. They can still do those things that they want to do in their life. And from that, we usually assign a client archetype. And so we've identified three client archetypes that work in helping us assess service for clients. So an entry-level client, a mid-level client, and a high-level client. Entry-level could be somebody who is pre-transition or post-transition. It can be a youth or an adult. We work with individuals who are 18 years old to 62 years old. So we really have to be diverse in the ways that we provide services to people. And oftentimes these entry-level clients can be out of work for a long time. They are chronically unemployed, and due to that, oftentimes might access the street economy, which can then lead to them having a criminal record, which can be a barrier to them finding employment or employment in certain fields. They also, we've identified an entry-level client as having little to no work experience and minimal marketable skills. And some of what makes a client, what becomes a big barrier for some of those entry-level clients is immigration issues. So people who have workers permit that have expired or about to expire, visa or asylum cases. We've also had clients who are dealing with some of the trauma that they've experienced after transitioning, whether that's losing their jobs, their families, or ending up homeless or forced into the street economy due to their transition. So providing mental health services helps those individuals get to a place where they can emotionally be prepared for going out into the job market. A mid-level client for us, again, is somebody who is either pre or post transition. Mid-level clients for us, our experience has been individuals who have transitioned later on in life, so they have a rich work history in their old identity. Oftentimes these clients are experiencing displacement for the first time. So for them, they've been able to access privilege and been able to economically be empowered for a very long time. And now that they've transitioned, they're experiencing difficulty. And for these clients, generally the biggest barrier is their being read as transgender people and losing opportunities because of that. Some of these clients may want to change careers, and they may be living off of their savings that are quickly running out, which adds stress to their life. They may be presenting in their new identity, but have not changed over their identity documents, so they need assistance in navigating those discussions when they're interviewing or when they've been offered a job. And unfortunately, what we've seen as well with these mid-level clients is that they will also need legal assistance in regards to divorce or custody issues. Again, due to their transitioning, they might have a separation from their spouse and or family, so those services have been important for a mid-level client. And a high-level client for us has been a pre-transition individual who is mid to high-ranking in a company, who is contemplating transition and has access to resources where they're able to review their options and really plan their transition. So for us, for these clients, what has been useful is providing assistance with a transition timeline. So helping them plot out on a calendar what their transition looks like, at what point they'll be changing their documents over, at what point they'll be coming out to their employer, at what point they'll be accessing the appropriate facilities for themselves. And so these archetypes are what has helped us be able to categorize our clients and therefore be able to more accurately provide services to them. I'm going to take a sip of water. So the first key was the needs assessment and informs all of those components of the services. The second key is employment relationships. So once we started providing services, what we very quickly figured out, or what I very quickly figured out, the program is run by one full-time employee, which is myself, and a part-time case manager. So oftentimes my time is split between being a case manager, a job developer, a presenter, a community organizer, and so I wear very many different hats in the work that I do for TEEP. And part of that was connecting with other services that would help clients develop employment skills. So again, for me, that was really trying to connect with places like WorkSource that is funded by the county to provide employment services to all communities, but oftentimes trans people were having difficulty with documents, with facilities usage, with staff that would use the wrong pronoun. So by providing them with a Gender Identity 101, I was able to create safe spaces within those agencies for transgender people. So those relationships looked like that. It was trainings and then being able to open up those services for trans people. This was also the Department of Employment and Rehab Services locally. I also developed a relationship with Dress for Success, which is in many states, so it's a great resource to look for locally. They provide interview clothing and work-appropriate clothing for women specifically, but again, provided them a training, made them culturally sensitive services, and was able to start referring people to their services. I also connected with local Chamber of Commerce agencies. So again, being able to speak to all of their members, being able to offer the gender identity or gender and sexual diversity in the workplace training to their members and to the chamber itself, which then, through those relationships, I was able to start getting the job leads from their members. And, you know, this would also lead to job leads. These connections with the chambers and with employers would eventually give you connections to employment opportunities, to volunteer and intern opportunities. And this is a great way to start collecting that information and potentially putting it into a newsletter, a central hub where you can then start sending out that information to the community. So those relationships were also really, really important to the success of the services and to clients being able to get to where they needed to in regards to employment. The third key was relationships with referral services. So these are agencies that provide something other than employment services. So for us, we're very lucky that we're in the Legal Services Department because we get a lot of issues of name and gender changes, as I mentioned, expungement of records, also domestic violence issues, and custody and divorce issues, just a plethora on top of potential as well discrimination or harassment issues in the workplace. So legal services are really going to be vital to supporting trans people and empowering them through their through the process of finding the job that they really want. Housing was also something that was really important, and training housing providers such as shelters and sober livings was also really important. What we found was that when we were making the referrals, they would say that they would accept trans people but would force them into the wrong facility. So it was important to notify them about why it was important for trans people to be housed in the area that they identified in. And, you know, support groups are also really important. Finding a job is really, really difficult, and people, I have found, really find it rewarding to connect to others who have been dealing with a similar situation. Being able to get those feelings out is really healthy for people. So having those resources is really, really important. And of course, when people start this process, oftentimes they want to change their identity documents. So getting a letter for gender change is also really important. So building relationships with clinics has also been vital to the success of TEEP. And that, of course, goes hand in hand with mental health services. So those relationships, those wraparound services are also really, really vital to successfully assisting a client. The fourth key will be then providing those services. So
hey,
providing
Drian,
the services to,
yes? Oh, we had a question come in
okay.
about the needs assessment, which is who in your organization does the needs assessment and how are they trained for that process?
So I do the needs assessment, and our case manager does the needs assessment. And so I developed the needs assessment and have trained her on asking the questions, gathering that information. And currently, for example, we have legal interns for the summer, and so they get trained on, again, gender neutral language, not making assumptions, having conversations to be able to gauge people's identities. So we train all of our interns, volunteers, and our staff all use gender neutral language when speaking with clients.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the fourth key would be services being up and running. And so for us, that was providing the case management services to clients, providing those soft skills, providing the referrals to the hard skills, the referrals to housing, legal, healthcare, being able to connect clients with all of those resources was important. And also having our Gender Identity 101 or Gender and Sexual Diversity trainings in the workplace up and running through the training committee. So I would train those individuals on how to provide a Gender Identity 101 to employers, and then I would sometimes partner up with those clients and we'd present together, and sometimes they would be able to do it on their own as well. And then, of course, all the client wraparound services. So the fourth key is how those services are provided. And so I'm going to go over some of what the client flow looks like for our agency when a client walks through our door. So for us, you know, a client walks through our door. We used to be able to do walk-ins, but we've gotten so busy that our days are generally scheduled. So now, unfortunately, we ask clients to call us ahead of time and make an appointment. But we do deal with a lot of clients who are transplants from other states who don't have resources, who might be struggling with homelessness. So for those clients, we do provide walk-in services, meaning that we'll set them up with an appointment and also provide them food bags, tokens, and referrals to cold weather shelters, for example, when the season calls for it, and other housing resources. So clients come in and we figure out what services they require through the needs assessment. So again, with this needs assessment, we gather baseline information, their education, their work history, what their goals and their current skills are. Once we have that information, we can decide what archetype our client is, whether they are entry-level, mid-level, and high-level. And from that, then we can have an idea of the services that they can utilize. And then we either provide some of those soft services, such as the resume development, cover letter development, or preparing them for a job interview, or refer them to services such as computer classes, GED programs, certificates in various programs such as GUARD training programs and things of that nature. And then what we have found is that we need to, that often there has been a need to stay connected with the client. So it would be great to be able to say that the client gets the job and then that's it, it's over, yay, they are economically empowered. Unfortunately, what we have found was that issues still come up. So either unfriendly staff, if there's a turnover, then an unfriendly manager might come on board. And so what we have found is that oftentimes when our clients have gotten a job and start experiencing difficulty, they need a lot of coaching to help them track the incidences, speak to an attorney about what they can do. Sometimes it requires writing letters to HR departments regarding people's employment rights, or just information on the trans identity, pronouns, things of that nature. So having post services is also really, really important, because clients for us keep coming back with a variety of issues. So getting the job is just one step. Keeping the job can sometimes be just as difficult and may require as many, if not more, services. So having that in place or being prepared for that is really, really important. So hopefully that once you have taken on some of these keys, you will be able to economically empower transgender people. And for us, what that has looked like is, safe and inclusive employment opportunities, partnerships with service providers to provide hard skills, again, computer classes, certificate programs. We have an agency called Winter, Women in Non-Traditional Employment, and they, again, have been trained and have opened their doors to our clients, so things of that nature. Also, you will be providing some in-house services, again, resumes, cover letters, mock interviews, those soft skills, and hopefully you will be connected to enough service providers where you can provide those wraparound services. So the mental health, the legal, all the other services that help support the client's well-being. And, by this time, you will hopefully have connected with employers. You will have relationships with them. These relationships, again, allow you to provide job leads, have them participate in job fairs, have them do mock interviews with your clients. You can set up events of that nature. You can utilize them as a resource in terms of what skills or what kind of services they feel they would like their candidates to have. And again, you can further consult them through that relationship on any issues that come up regarding gender identity and sexual orientation, regarding transgender people, regarding the development of transition guidelines or bathroom policies, or even information for insurance coverage. You can become that resource for employers that helps them to really be inclusive employers. And that's really how I see it, that even though we work with a lot of employers who don't come out as trans-inclusive employers, once we work with them, once we provide them services and give them trainings, then they are an inclusive employer. And sometimes employers just need that little bit of information to be good employers of transgender people. So it really, really helps to do so much good for your clients and for the services that you provide. And thank you so much. That's pretty much in a nutshell the steps that I took when developing the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Drian. That was an amazing presentation. I know that I learned a lot from it. So like Drian said, we're happy to take questions. If you have questions, you can feel free to click the raise hand button and we'll call on you, or you can type it in. While we're waiting for folks to start asking questions, Drian, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Which is that it seems like being in a high resource area like Los Angeles gives you an advantage in that you have a lot of existing services set up to go. What do you think would be kind of the core components of the Trans Economic Empowerment Project that could be used in, say, rural areas, or just in, in other cities that don't have as much infrastructure for trans folks?
And yes, we are so lucky to have as many resources as we do, and I've been really fortunate in connecting with various agencies that have been very welcoming to the trans community and this information. And for individuals who are in more rural areas, or maybe where there aren't as many resources, for me, I think it's really important then to connect with chambers, business chambers or chambers of commerce. And for me, providing a gender and sexual diversity training, or even to present a discussion about that topic to a chamber, and most chambers have monthly meetings for their members, or they provide newsletters. So connecting with those agencies and being able to, for example, if they have a newsletter, give them information about gender identity in the workplace that informs their members. Or if you build strong enough relationship with these entities, then providing a free gender and sexual diversity training for their members during one of their monthly gathering meetings is a great way to build that relationship, find allies, and then be able to say, hey, would you be willing to send us your job leads? Would you be willing to invite us to your workplace to provide this training? And then you are building on those resources. Now you have job leads that you can share with people. You have an inclusive employer that you can add to your list. You can invite them to job fairs if you develop events like that moving forward. So I think connecting with chambers or chambers of commerce is a great way to start building those relationships that can lead to so many other things.
Thank you. We had a question come in, and let me just pull it up so I can read it properly. The question says, what is your favorite part about doing this work, and what is the most challenging?
My favorite part of doing this work is really connecting with service providers who just don't know how to be inclusive of trans people. So it's not that they don't want to be, which is such a nice thing to find out, but just that they don't have those skills. And it's been so amazing to see employers, service providers really become great at addressing the needs of transgender people with a little bit of help. And so it's inspiring for me to see that employers want to be good, they want to do the right thing, they just don't know how and are skeptical, or for them it's always a fear of the bottom line or affecting their bottom line. So when you build those relationships, it's amazing to see them embrace the community and open their doors to the community. The most challenging thing has been the economy and just the lack of opportunities employment-wise for people, and also working with agencies like WorkSource, I've been able to get a lot of my clients connected to computer classes and things of that nature. And when funding cuts happen, those are some of the first services to go. So that can be frustrating when services start to dwindle. And then you just have to think creatively about how to make up for those. And sometimes it's about building relationships with certain companies who would be willing to provide computer classes, for example, or resume reviews or things of that nature. And so the economy has definitely been really challenging and forced me to think creatively in terms of services.
Thank you. We had another question come in that says, hello, I'm a trans man and a pastor. One of my roles within the spiritual community is as the regional minister for the West Coast for a transgender ministry. With that said, how can I incorporate your project into my spiritual community?
I think one way could be, utilizing the strengths of what you do in the church. To me, that's bringing people together to share with one another. So for me, perhaps developing a job club where people can talk about what their experience is getting jobs, transitioning on the job, being able to connect to each other, being able to identify resources as a group. I think that's a really great way of utilizing what's already happening in a church-like setting and just changing the discussion a little bit and taking it to a place of economic empowerment, figuring out what that looks like for people. And then, I think that could be a great starting point too if you want to develop a program with more in-house services. These kinds of discussions will really help you get clarity on what those services may look like. and also to identify gatekeepers who might really be willing to put in the time to help develop these services.
Thank you. Another one came in asking about, given what you were saying about the economy being a major challenge, when you're working with clients who've been out of work for a long time, how do you help them think positively and maintain hope?
And you know, that's a difficult one. I have a lot of clients who internalize the difficulties of getting a job. So it becomes about that I'm readable as trans, that I'm too tall, that I'm not passing, that I need to get surgeries, that I need to get, you know, other things in order to then be able to get a job. And so for me, I always try to refocus that discussion and let people know that the economy is just difficult and that everyone is having a hard time finding a job, and that it just means, you know, a little bit more work, really setting up a schedule for individuals on a daily schedule of how they send out resumes, making sure that they're sending out a certain amount of resumes every day, that they're keeping to a schedule where they're constantly checking online, constantly calling resources, constantly connecting with service providers, and also volunteering. I feel that volunteering has been key in helping people get out of that space of feeling like it's because they are trans or because of them that they can't get a job. It really helps them get outside of that space and be appreciated too for the work that they do and the skills that they bring. And so also, you know, mental health services has been really helpful in that way as well. So for those individuals who are really having a hard time and maybe dealing with a little bit of depression, being able to connect with a therapist is really, really important. Sometimes it's just about having a conversation with someone to help them see a different way of dealing with their employment issues. And sometimes it really does require a licensed therapist who can help people get to a different energy, a different space. So being able to talk to individuals, being able to refer them to support groups, and also having mental health services, I think those are three really good ways of being able to help somebody who's having a hard time finding a job. And also, I think thinking creatively, volunteering, I think has become a really great way for people to develop and keep their skills fresh, and also have resources when they interview, such as referrals, people who can speak to the work that they do. So referring someone to other opportunities like volunteering is a really great way of getting them out of that space.
Thank you for that. Another question came in, says, where can I receive more training to present these services to my community?
There are some really great resources online. Of course, you can always contact me at the beginning, or I don't know if you guys can still see my screen, but I'll put it up now. You can contact me, email me, or call me, and I'd be happy to share resources with individuals. I'd be happy to direct you to some websites that have some good information as well. And so I think that's a really good way to get started. But really, I think also having conversations with people who run these programs, whether it's Transgender Economic Empowerment Project or the Transgender Economic Empowerment Initiative in San Francisco, getting that experience of providing the services might help you think about some of the issues that come up that you might not think about as well. So definitely connect with existing resources. It's really helpful.
Thank you for all those wonderful answers to those questions. It looks like there has been maybe a slowdown in question asking, or maybe folks have asked all the questions that they feel comfortable asking right now. I'll give folks a couple more minutes to think of other questions they may have. And in the meantime, I just want to say thank you so much, Drian, for sharing your time with us and your expertise. I know that the program that you run down in LA has been very successful and modeled on other programs that exist and that are spreading throughout the country. So I just wanted to say thank you again for taking so much time to devote to us. I know you guys, with over 1,000 folks that you've case managed, your time is at a premium. So thank you for devoting your time to us. Are there any other? Oh, sorry, absolutely.
Oh, no, I was just going to say thank you so much for the invitation to do this. It's absolutely my pleasure. I'm happy to see that there's an interest in more of these services. And thank you to the members who logged in today. It's a really amazing honor to be able to do this work, and to be able to share some best practices is really just something that I'm so happy to be able to do and honored to be able to do. And thank you so much for tuning in today.
Looks like, oh, we had one more question come in. This question says, I'm wondering a bit more about your approach for assigning archetypes and how we could do that without one central person focused on that process like you, because we don't have a paid position to do that in our center. Do you have tools to share to split this type of job among volunteers or interns?
In terms of like the skills that can be provided amongst volunteers and interns, am I understanding the question correctly?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the soft skills are really easy to provide on a volunteer basis. Again, reviewing resumes, giving people tips on their resumes, helping them alter their resumes for the different jobs that they'll be applying to, teaching them how to do that for themselves so then they can do it in the future. Doing mock interviews with people is something that's fairly easy to do. And, depending on the person's time, you can have one individual who registers in various websites such as LinkedIn, Indeed, Monster Jobs, things like that, where you can start getting job leads and you can start putting them together in an email and having it become a monthly newsletter or an employment newsletter. So those are, I think, easy services that can be provided with minimal staff or minimal hours required. So those job leads from those websites, the soft skills such as reviewing resumes, helping people develop new ones, mock interviews and cover letters, those are all fairly easy services. And also things that you can find resources for online, so you can have little packets even of a resume packet, an interviewing packet with just copies or even directions to links where people can get those services. So that's a quick and easy way of being able to provide some services.
And the person who asked that question asked a follow-up saying, thanks, we do those soft skills now, and I'm wondering a bit more about the intake process. Do you think if we followed up, you could help us think about how to train people to do intake, since it would not be one person who could do intake in our center like you and your case manager? So the question is, can they follow up with you to think more about how to train people to do intake?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to talk offline or continue the dialogue. And yes, every summer we get legal interns from various colleges, and so we have training in place that we provide them to make sure that services are provided in a consistent manner. So yes, I would be more than happy to share some of those resources and talk about what that looks like for us.
Thank you. Another question came in saying, is it possible to have you present a workshop?
Yes, definitely. Part of the program I run is funded to present various workshops. Sometimes it's Know Your Rights, sometimes it's this one, and sometimes it's gender and sexual diversity in the workplace. So yes, I would be happy to do it, and it's a great pleasure to go out and be able to talk to people about these resources and services.
Thank you. So let's see. Do folks have any last-minute questions? Seems like people today are a little bit shy about using the audio portion, but that is just fine.
This is my first webinar. You guys made it so much fun. Thank you. I was a little nervous too.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you again, Drian, for your time and for your expertise, and thank you to everyone who has attended the webinar and asked questions and actively participated. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anand. Thank you so much for this invitation and all your support. And thank you to everyone who logged in for taking some of your time today to listen to this presentation. I hope it was useful, and thank you once again.
All right, and if folks want to tune in for the next webinar, it will be July. Actually, let me double check that I've got the date correct. Yes, July 21st, which is also a Monday, and the topic for that one will be rural organizing. So if you are interested in that, if you're in an area that is not a large metropolitan, booming metropolis, we'll have some tips for you in those areas. And once again, if you would like to learn anything more about Trans Advocacy Network, you can visit our website at transadvocacynetwork.org. And we want to say thank you to the Gill Foundation for sponsoring our programming today. If you have any questions for follow-up, you can feel free to go to the TAN website and email us. You can also see us on Facebook, and we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.